Welcome back one and all to the 2018 Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP season. It's time for round 4, and we're back across the Atlantic and at Brands Hatch for the final race using the GT3 cars. My name is Justin, and joining me once again, it's Chris.
Hello everybody, it is always a great pleasure to be back in the box alongside your good self Justin, but also for VGP. Michael Schmidl is dominating the season, as you can see, but we are on the British soil for an absolute classic race here at Brands Hatch, and I cannot wait.
Yep, really looking forward to this one. It is, of course, a classic high-speed circuit with plenty of overtaking opportunities, so I think we're going to be on for a good show. As we can see there, Michael Schmidl leading the championship as it stands right now by 32 points, a nearly perfect 77 out of a total 78 available points in the season so far.
Blasek, Dolezal and Polesny very close, 45, 41, 40 respectively. Stefanko not too far behind. The rest of the field have a lot of work to do. Winning a race is never an easy feat. It's important for drivers to master all phases of each race, and one of the most important one is the race start. Perfect reaction time, holding your nerves with your competitors in very close proximity, and your own adrenaline levels. Every driver has to take all these factors into consideration. It's far too easy to lose it and make a mistake falling a long way through the field. After all, the drivers know all too well that the race is never won in the first corner, but a good start can certainly help, and that doesn't just apply to the real world racing, it applies to the virtual one as well. So today we're going to look at race start. So what better example to look at than the current leader of the Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP 2018 season, Michael Schmidl. He manages to get clean starts with his brilliant car and leaves his competitors without a chance to challenge. He pulls away calmly without any hiccups and knows how to get the best traction from his car. Schmidl has proven his position with the clutch in 2 of the 3 races this season. However, in Macau he has to work hard to fend off the Republic of Gamers car of Martin Stefanko. Last year's champion had changed gears better and found himself side by side with Schmidl, and the current championship leader, however, doesn't scare easily, and he forced Stefanko into the worst racing line. That had bad consequences for him, and as such a great start was unfortunately rewarded by dropping to 3rd, and Schmidl got away once again. You'd be forgiven for thinking that the start is a simple matter, but it is anything but. If the driver lets go of the clutch too quickly, the car delivers too much power and you end up with a lot of smoke and very little momentum, which is exactly what happened to Michael Blasek at Imola. He started on the front row, but with that poor getaway he lost his chance to fight for the win. He did have a great recovery drive and finished 3rd. A bad start also changed the course of Wojciech Polesny's race in Macau. He was forced off the racing line, and as is so common in city tracks, that led him into the trap of nowhere to go in the mayhem. Suddenly all his podium ambitions were gone as his Predator car took a major role in the big crash that followed in turn 2.
Oh, it looks like a bit of contact in the background there. That is, oh gosh, I'm actually not Predator blue car of Polesny, who's gone for a couple of spins.
Oh my goodness. Choosing the correct line is also a very important factor in a race. The first braking zone tends to be very hectic as the entire grid is arriving at once. And that's what caught out Jan Sikora in his red and white Lynx car at the Laguna Seca circuit. As Sikora tried to get to the inside line, he moved across the pit lane exit and hit a fixed concrete cone. That couldn't have ended worse for the Lynx driver as his car was catapulted into the air and dropped to last place in pirouettes. All in all, the perfect start really matters, and if anybody wants to beat Magic Michael this season, they had better begin by finding a good recipe for a great getaway. Let's wait and see what our drivers have practiced for Brands Hatch, the final appearance of the Mercedes-AMG GT3 cars.
I'm going to miss these AMG GT3 cars when they're gone and that lovely V8 sound. Driver of the day, though, for Laguna Seca was Martin Stefanko, as voted by you, the viewers. And again, we are going to be heading to Brands Hatch for today's race. Just 9 turns at this incredibly classic circuit. It looks like the temperature is pretty mild today with a bit of fog, actually. Interestingly, a nice weather forecast here. We do have a replacement for Peter Dolezal. He's being replaced by Jan Frabisch, who we saw last year, of course, during the 2017 VGP Championship. But here is the qualifying results, and Chris, talk us through them.
By 700ths of a second, Stefanko trails the all-dominant Schmidl. Polesny 3, Schlebeck in 4, Jan Sikora 5, Blasek in 6th in the Legion, Kostlik 7 in the Xiaomi Geek, Jaroslav Honzik in the Thrustmaster is 8th, Robin Lucas 9, Peter Zubek in the Avast car in 10th, our new guy Jan Fravish in the second block car in 11th, with Thomas Prohaska at the back of the field, surprisingly. Now, driver of the day 2 races ago, and he finds himself struggling here at Brands.
Yep, and Robin Lucas starting from 9th position, the only driver yet to score points so far this season, so he'll be looking for a good result as the lights prepare to go out now. And we are racing at Brands Hatch, and of course a short run down to that first downhill corner, and it looks like a good start for Schmidl and Stefanko, but oh no, here comes Polesny actually up the inside on Stefanko very early as they head into the long right-hander. Oh, and that's a car off at the back there. I'm not sure. That's Kostelik. He has lost a lot of time. Of course he's lost positions, but even more importantly, he's just losing time hand over fist. In back up at the front though, it looks like Stefanko has just about managed to hold on to that second place position ahead of Polesny. He was looking very keen. Meanwhile, Blazek pressuring Chlebitz as well in the background there for 4th position. The Legion car trying to make something happen, but he's actually got the Lynx car behind him, and some more cars going side by side in the background there as well too. So yeah, it's getting very interesting in the midfield in particular, but up at the front, Schmidl already starting to break away, Chris.
Yeah, that seems to be his thing for this season, to get out the front and leg it into the distance. We see the Thrustmaster car of Jaroslav Honzik doing a lovely move there on the inside of Hawthorne's Bend to get up into 8th position. We're seeing a lot of people are not afraid to get their elbows out, and it's not really surprising. It's there are some very, you really have to make the overtaking opportunities happen, and a lot of these turns are very, very bumpy, as we've all seen already proven at Paddock Hill Bend. It's so easy to get the car completely out of kilter and you find yourself on the grass. Looking at Jaroslav Honzik still, he is chasing down, or trying to chase down, that's Peter Zubek, I believe, in the next car along. So he's doing what he can to try and keep in touch, and look at that, you just see in the background the Lynx car really fending off, jumping very early to the inside of Druids to defend the position from the Avast car. Oops, wow, there's again another bit of elbows going on there in Druids, but sometimes you have to press the advantage when you have it.
Yep, Honzik making the most of his starting position, gains a position. Kostelik, meanwhile, into the pits for what is obviously a unnecessary, or a necessary stop, but not an unplanned stop is what I meant to say. Meanwhile, Martin Stefanko has actually begun to eliminate that gap between himself and Michael Schmidl in the background, though. Peter Zubek coming under attack from Prohaska in the background there, or actually that's Frabish, excuse me, in the Seco Plus car just behind him. So he's coming under attack. Zubek down into 10th position, really not where you normally see him. He's pressuring Prohaska, though, as much as he can. The Vodafone car doing well to hold off the Avast car of Peter Zubek as they make their way through the left-hander. And as you said, Chris, a very bumpy circuit, very high speed as well too. You know, these are 4th gear corners and stuff like that. I mean, they're carrying good speed. And again, as you said, it was very bumpy. We could see from the onboard shots just how bumpy it was. And Schmidl does fastest lap, immediately replaced by Stefanko, and then Polesny goes even quicker. He's actually within a second still of Martin Stefanko. So even though Stefanko and Schmidl very close to one another, Polesny is keeping them honest.
That is true. The two MSs are right at the front, so Schmidl has not been able to enjoy the luxury of just running off into the distance, as has become, and there they are. He's not been able to enjoy the big amount of breathing space that he's become renowned for doing in this particular season. The Predator Red having to really fend off the Republica Gamers car there as they've come through Surtees, now going through Pilgrim's Drop. And there's Robin Lucas. His season just does not... will this boy ever get a break? He's really, really struggled in these GT3 cars, and as you've already said, this is the final time we'll be running them in this season. What a great circuit. They've all been great circuits, to be fair, but it's a great one. We're seeing off these GT3s. That's Michael Blazek in the Legion car really hounding Andrei Schlebek for that 4th position. And again, look at this, that's less than half a second separating the top two. Polesny's made a mistake somewhere. He's fallen a little bit off the back of these two. But if we've seen so many times, the more they fight, the more they're going to slow each other down. And a mistake is seriously costly on these bumps.
Yeah, and especially, again, such a high-speed circuit as well, too. So, yeah, every little mistake can lose you lots and lots of time, as we've seen already with Martin Kostelik, as he's way down in last position. It's not a great start to his race, but of course it's not over yet. And if we get the full course yellow, that will of course allow the cars to bunch up and be closer to each other. So certainly that is a possibility for him. He doesn't want to give up just yet. Another man that doesn't want to give up is Martin Stefanko as we head down to the left-hander once again. And it's looking decently close between himself and Schmidl. Again, just 7/100ths of a second between the two of them in qualifying, so we know how close the pace between them is. I wanted to comment just briefly on Michael Blazek. Wow, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. Just a brief reminder to everybody, he's currently second in the championship, down in 5th position. This is really not where he wants to be. He's all over the back of Klebitz, though, but he really needs to make that move, especially if he wants to stay involved with the podium battle, because Polesny has already built a pretty significant gap down to Klebitz there in the Alza Gaming car. So the Legion car of Michael Blazek is going to be very keen to try and get by, but of course he needs to do it safely, and he needs to make sure he doesn't take himself out or anyone else in the process. So he's got that tightrope walk of aggressiveness and caution that he needs to balance.
Absolutely, and he is really keeping his car very large in the mirrors of that Alza Gaming car. They now come through. Paddock Hill Bend is slightly off camber and very bumpy, so you make a mistake, you lock up your brakes, and you are just off. You are not recovering in a hurry. Here we see the two MSs at the front, Michael Schmidl leading Martin Stefanko, and not too far behind, Wojciech Polesny is gaining a little bit on this particular pair. He's got no direct competition behind. You can see the gap between Polesny and Klebitz. And that is a 3-car train that Andre is leading with Blazek and Honzik in that particular battle as well. On board again with Martin Stefanko, and it again accentuates how bumpy this track is. Coming through Hawthorne Hill into Hawthorne's Bend. And this again is a very, very quick right-hander, but if you make a mistake, you are off onto the grass, and it's not much of a distance between turns 5 and 6, Hawthorne's Bend and Westfield Bend. If you're off on the grass, you run the risk of just disappearing off into the grass and losing a whole heap of time. And Stefanko's really pressuring Schmidl. So it looks like he's really got the pace to be able to keep the championship leader in contention, in keeping him honest today.
Yeah, very, very close between the two of them. Yeah, I mean, you could just really see it from the exterior shots. I mean, you can see it from the interior shots as well, too. But the Republic of Gamers car not able to find a way by just yet. But, I mean, really, this is the MO of these guys. We've seen Schmidl versus Stefanko so many times in VGP in 2017 and 2018, and hopefully for years still to come. Into Druids they go once again, and again, they're not trying anything too crazy, and that's what we've seen from them. A lot of pressuring is what goes on between these guys. It's the mental game, it's the consistency. You know, it's not. They're pretty similar on pace at almost every single track. You know, there's almost nothing between the two of them. Yes, it has not been the greatest of starts for Stefanko's season. You know, maybe it just was the track, the GT3 car, still getting used to everything. He is currently in 5th in the standings, but he's got less than half the points of the driver ahead of him, who is Michael Schmidl, who is again has 77 out of a possible 78 points. And I think that more than anything else accentuates what kind of season Michael Schmidl is having. Yes, he's extremely quick. Yes, he's been beating Martin Stefanko, but more importantly, he's been darn near flawless.
Absolutely, and that sort of thing weighs heavy on the drivers around him. Again, you've got to think Martin Stefanko, he can see the back of Michael Schmidl's car. It has been pretty much all race long. He qualified within a 10th of the car he is chasing. There's going to be that little voice that says, what on earth can I do to beat this man? What can I do? How can I, I'm pushing at 3,000% already. What more can I do? And that sort of thing is quite, can be quite difficult to manage. But even if you're further down the field, as we're looking here at Thomas Prohaska and Peter Zubak, so even these guys will have a similar sort of thing. I'm pushing as hard as I can. Oh, you saw that Zubak got slightly crossed up in that vast car. He got slightly crossed up. He was lucky he kept it out of the gravel. Or skillful. It was probably more skill than luck, to be fair. Didn't mean to sound disingenuous. But again, he's got that little voice that's like, what can I do to get past the guy ahead? It can be very, very difficult. If you know you're quicker, you will find your way past and you will keep yourself calm. But if you're pushing and pushing up to where your skill level is and you still can't get past the car ahead, that's when frustration starts to kick in, and that's when mistakes start to crop up. We're quite some way into this race and still got lovely big groups of battling going on. Here is Jaroslav Honzik, currently 6th in the Thrustmaster car, still on the back of that Legion car. Michael Blaszczak, who still trails Andrzej Schlebeck. That's for 4th position. There is the lead battle, and I think that's the Xiaomi Geek car. That's Kostalik. Yeah, we saw him having to go through the pits, and I think that's the first car we've actually seen this season is going to be lapped.
I think so, yes. Yeah, it's been extremely close in 2018, and he does stay right out of the way of the 2 leaders, moving to the right-hand side of the start-finish straight. He's also going to allow Polesny to go through as well, too, who is still about 1.5 seconds adrift of this lead battle between Schmidl and Stefanko. And again, the Predator car and the Republic of Gamers car, once again, as it should be, very close on circuit and just pressuring one another. Looking backwards from the Legion car of Michael Blaszczak, just again looking at Jaroslav Honzik, who again is just very, very close but can't quite make anything happen. Hlebets really holding up this group, not a massive amount. When I say really holding them up, I don't mean a lot. I mean he's definitely holding them up, but I don't think he's holding them up very much because there's not an enormous gap between Polesny and Hlebets. It's only about 3 seconds or so right now. Stefanko looking like he got very, very close to the back of Schmidl now. He's less than a car length at points, it seems, between those 2 red cars. And they're just making their way through the pretty high-speed parts of the circuit. I must admit, this is a circuit that you probably know quite a bit more than I do. You're a bit more intimate with this circuit, whereas Laguna Seca, Circuit of the Americas, that's more my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I love this Brands Hatch circuit. It is one of my favorites in Europe.
It's a great circuit, but it is so challenging. There's not many very heavy braking zones where you would typically expect a lot of overtaking. There is that really difficult Paddock Hill bend. The apex is off camber, so it's difficult to stay onto the inside for too long. But the bumps will just throw the cars around. We've seen repeatedly already in this race. Here we see Michael Blaszczak in the Legion car trying to keep that Honzik that's behind him. He's trying his best to keep that position his, but also trying his best to try and attack that 4th place car has been staring at Andrzej Schlebeck. So again, he's still got to maintain his own braking, but oops, you saw the bumps just caught him out slightly there at Surtees, turn 4. But because there's so few really heavy braking zones, you've got to really think very, very strategically on where you're going to position your car. Like here, for instance, Hawthorne's Bend, it's almost flat. You're not going to really do much unless someone flies off the road and you're then taking advantage of someone else's mistake. There, Westfield Bend, turn 6, and then Sheen, which is this really awkward, very blind. You know, the apex is on the crest, so you're almost throwing the car and hoping it'll stick. So it's a very tricky corner. Oh, there you saw Zubek getting very, very crossed up. I think that was because he was very, very close to the Vodafone car of Thomas Prohaska, who's doing well. He started last and is up to 8th position, so he's had a fairly decent start compared to where he's compared to his qualifying position. Peter Zubek may have other things to say. Of course, he's been chasing that Vodafone car for a while. But you've really got to be very, very opportunistic. You don't so much have to rely on a mistake from others, but this is a circuit that doesn't lend itself to many, diving on the inside of braking zones. Here is the biggest one. It's Druids Bend. But that's only worthwhile if you get a very good run out of Paddock Hill Bend. As we've seen several times already this race, it's very easy to get that one wrong.
Oh yeah. It seems like pretty much every corner on this circuit is very easy to get wrong. As we've got just under 30 minutes plus 1 lap still remaining, and Peter Zubek currently 11th in the championship standings. He had such a good year last year, and in fact, he may drop down another position. Frabish is all over the back of him in that Seiko Plus car. He is, again, a reserve driver filling in today, but it seems nobody told him that, as he's piling the pressure on Zubek, who, again, has not had a great season. Only 3 points after 3 races in the GT3 car. Oh, and the Vodafone of, that's Prohaska, I believe. Yeah, Prohaska off the circuit. Oh, that is that's got to be really painful. He's got 8 points so far in this season, so it's been going pretty well for him. He's more of a new name compared to some of the other guys, but that dropped him right down into 10th position. But it could bring Robin Lucas into the points again. Robin Lucas, out of everybody, has had the worst start with no points to his name just yet, but this could be a good opportunity for him to finally get his name up there. And of course, we still have lots of racing still to go here.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Blazek has managed to get ahead of Hlebets.
Yeah.
Hanzik is still right on the back of this. Sikora really not that far down, and then it's a pretty big gap down to Zubek in 8th position. But the Blazek now leads this train. We'll see if he can actually pull away. Meanwhile, Prohaska is doing his best to keep Zubek behind.
And Framish has got the pair of them. He's up to 8th now. There he is. You can see his car is actually further ahead. There's the second plus car.
Wow.
So those two have either made a mistake or Framish has pulled off an incredible move and nailed the pair of them. Something that did make me laugh, I've been keeping an eye on our drivers. You can see them at the bottom, just to kind of see there's quite a big difference in styles. There always is. That sounds like a bit of an obvious statement. But some drivers really fight their cars as they're coming through this very bumpy circuit, which, again, I can perfectly understand. But some people, and Smiddle is one of them, that just is a smooth, flows through the corners, just never seems to fight his car. But what actually made me laugh, it was Jaroslav Honzik looking over to his right, waving at the driver next to him. I thought that was brilliant. And then Framish has just gone, "Yep, I see your taunt, and I've overtaken the pair of you." So that was although overtaking the cars he was fighting with. So that was absolutely brilliant. So that's typical. That's typical Honzik, though. He's quite a character in whatever form he races in. But, as we just see Prohaska fighting off, that is Zubek that he is keeping behind him as best he can. That was Zubek having a look on the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. You've got to be brave to throw it on the inside there, and he opted not to go for it. But some drivers, whether it's a setup difference or whether it's just they're not comfortable with the circuit, a lot of drivers are really fighting very hard to keep these Mercedes-AMG GT3s under control, and some just seem to really flow through each corner, and I think it's really paying off for those that have just got that balance absolutely right. Again, it sounds like a bit of an obvious statement. You always want to have a setup that works for you, but when you're having to fight the car, you can be the quickest driver in the world. If you're fighting your car, you're not going to win.
Yeah, I was just looking at Polesny, actually. You can see, the amount of corrections that he's doing mid-corner. You can see it as well on the Seiko Plus driver as well. Hanzik, actually, Blazek has begun to pull away now from Hlebets, and it looks like Jaroslav Hanzik could be onto the back of this Alza Gaming car and looking to move up into the top 5. Very close through the final corner of the Thrustmaster car, catching that slipstream, of course, on the run down towards turn 1. Will he have an overtake attempt into Druids? But it is fantastic getting to watch this. Of course, Jaroslav Hanzik down at the bottom right-hand screen in the middle. That's Hanzik, if you're not familiar with him. And you can just see him as he's piling that pressure on. Hlebets feeling the need to go defensive even into Druids, kind of covering off that middle line into that very slow corner, the slowest corner on the track, I believe. But Hlebets defending to the best of his ability. But yeah, and this is one of the benefits of Virtual GP. And one of the reasons I'm so glad to be a part of this with Mercedes-Benz and everything, because you get to watch these guys do this. It's unlike any other league in that regard. You get to normally see your driving heroes fighting the wheel, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, all of those guys and stuff. But Virtual GP, one of the only places where you can actually see sim racing competitors with that level of detail, and it is truly fantastic to see. We're on board with Hlebets now, just looking backward at Hanzik, who again was really piling that pressure on, but it seems that Hlebets pulling out a little bit of a gap there, so it's looking pretty comfortable for him. Just want to remind you guys, of course, that we do have the Driver of the Day vote, so make sure you cast your vote before the next race, which is on June 7th. So if you have a Driver of the Day, make sure you let us know on the website. And once again, there, of course, is a prediction game as well, too. And that's all part of our partners, which includes the pitcrewonline.net. Now, turning back our focus towards the racing, and it looks like Hlebets, as I mentioned, really not able to keep up with Blazek. I mean, he's still just about within touching distance. Blazek's got to keep everything pointed in the right direction, but it seems that Hlebets may be dropping off a little bit. And again, as I mentioned before, Chris, he could be coming under attack from Hanzik shortly.
Very true, and Jan Segura is really working hard to try and stay in touch. We're seeing him fight that car. He's definitely somebody that is really struggling to keep that car on the black stuff, and he is. It's not paying off for him. He's a couple of seconds down. There he is from that particular battle, so it's not doing well for him. Back up to the lead battle then. Still barely half a second separating the two MSs of the front. Michael Schmidl leading the way. And something else that I observed we all can observe from the driver cameras that are kindly provided to us by Virtual GP is the faces, the expressions you see on the drivers. Some of them are far more expressive than others. Michael Schmidl, for instance, you can see when he's smiling, you can see when he is comfortable. And Martin Stefenko has a face like stone. It just doesn't move. And again, I'm not meaning that in a critical sense. I'm not suggesting he looks like a gargoyle or such, but it's just a case of he is so focused. It's just, you could pretty much bite him or hit him, and nothing would faze him. That's the kind of look, the steady determination. And can you blame him when he is chasing someone of the caliber of Michael Schmidl, and he has been chasing him for 14 laps now? So it's not a flash in the pan moment. He is right there and really pressuring for that lead. But Robin Lucas seems to be really getting into his stride now. He's really struggled, as we've said before, in this season. He is chasing down Thomas Prohaska in the Vodafone car. And Prohaska 2 races ago was driver of the day. So he is very, very good at getting the best out of that GT3 car. Robin Lucas is right on the verge there of getting up into the points.
Yeah, Lucas actually was 9th in qualifying, ahead of Prohaska and Zubek and Frabic. So he's got good pace, at least over 1 lap, but he can certainly make something happen here. Again, the Sandisk driver, the only one yet to score points so far in what has been a truly incredible 2018 season. But yeah, he's definitely, that's the position that matters the most. If he can get ahead of Thomas Prohaska, then he can finally open his account for 2018, get that all-important first championship point of the season, and then maybe hope for something better with the prototypes, which will, of course, be starting with the next race. So, again, this is the final race with the GT3 cars. And, again, it's very, very close between Schmidl and Stefenko. These guys are separated by practically nothing. And just going back to what Chris said, I mean, you can see Stefenko's face right there. I mean, I wouldn't want to play poker with the guy, I'll put it that way, because, I mean, he is just, I'm sure he's feeling all sorts of emotions on the inside, because, after all, he is, in fact, human, I would assume. I don't think he's an android or anything like that. But, you know, he doesn't show it. He internalizes everything and focuses on the challenge at hand, which is, of course, getting ahead of that man at the bottom left-hand corner, Michael Schmidl. And this is who it came down to. For those of you that missed the 2017 season, this is who it came down to at the final race in Suzuka. It all came down to Suzuka, and it eventually was Stefenko who had that incredible second half to the season. He was losing for the majority of the 2017 season. So, you know, I really just want to emphasize that. We're only 3 races in to this 12-race season, and it might be a pretty big gap between Schmidl and Stefenko at the moment, but it wouldn't be the first time that Stefenko has eliminated that kind of gap and come from behind to pick up the championship win at the end of the season. So I'm not going to count him out just yet, and especially when the gap between them is this small, Chris.
And it's over 6 seconds between themselves and Polesny, so they really have broken away from the field. Polesny is completely on his own. He's got no one fore or aft in immediate vicinity, so he can just press on, but it's too easy to push too hard, especially here at Brands Hatch, and just fly off into the dust. Exactly as you said, Martin Stefenko is half the points of Michael Schmidl, but this is something else to bear in mind. 2017 only had the one car. You had the one car beginning to end. This is a 3-car season. They are, of course, finishing up the GT3s here at Brands Hatch. We move over to the prototype car for the next 4 rounds, and then returning to the hybrid single-seater for the tail end of the season. So these guys had all that time to become very familiar with how the car felt. So they're familiar to a point with how these GT3 cars feel, and then it's all going to completely change. Michael Schmidl might not be at home with the prototype as much as he has been with the GT3. We're fairly confident he's going to be pretty good in the single-seater, but he may have lost 70 points by that stage. So it is by no means a done deal. He may be in a pretty commanding position now. After next week, when we start seeing them in the prototypes, that's when we're going to really start to see how well he can adapt.
Yeah, and Schmidl is a fierce competitor, and I mean, both of these guys are incredible. Again, it came down to the last race. I mean, either one of them could have won it last year, and it was just inches between the two of them that eventually decided that championship. And I think both of these guys, if you put them in a toaster, they'd set fastest lap. They're just that kind of person. So I have the utmost confidence in both of them. But yes, that's really what we're hoping for. With this season that uses 3 different cars, what if Stefanko is the one that's 7/100ths quicker in the prototype? You know what I mean? That's what this season is all about. It's about variety, and as we all know, variety is the spice of life. We're going to circuits that we've never seen before in VGP, circuits that you really don't see in sim racing very often. I think Macau is a perfect example of the kind of season that the Mercedes-Benz 2018 Virtual GP season is all about. It's just about that, going different places, trying different things, doing things differently from what the traditional sim racing leagues do. And that's what VGP has always done by collecting these drivers and putting them all in one place, which is a relatively new concept for some other sim racing leagues. But for VGP, that's the way it has always been. And it's great to see them, pioneering, trying new things. And as I mentioned before, the hope is that we'll just see those little bit of variations, just change it up. And, we might actually have an overtake here. Hanzik finally getting a good run on Hlebets. He'll have to do it around the outside of turn 1, though. And it looks like with that inside line, Hlebets is going to hold on to him. He squeezes him a bit at the exit. He's just about going to hold on to track position. He's going to force Hanzik to go wide around the outside of Druids. And it looks like he's not going to be able to quite hook that up, and just couldn't quite make it happen. A good overtake attempt by Jaroslav Hanzik, but an even better defense from Hlebets holds on to that 5th place position.
That he does. Also, another string to Michael Schmidl's bow is that he is an F1 Esports qualifier. So that just shows how quick he is.
Indeed.
He took part in the round at the streets of Baku and
on PlayStation
stuck it in second. Yeah, we hadn't seen him on the round prior, and bang, just goes and qualifies. Almost like he just turns up, does his thing, and wins almost. No matter what he's doing, he is right there at the sharp end. So it just shows how versatile he absolutely is. But I think even he would have to concede he is working very, very hard to keep that Republic of Gamers Mercedes of Martin Stefanko, knowing full, exactly as you've already said, Justin, how often they crossed swords last season, and the result of that towards the end. Schmidl knows he cannot be complacent. He cannot let... It would be easy to assume, I've got a comfortable lead. I don't need to push so hard. At this stage of the season, no, very, very bad idea. If you're into the last round and have 30 points, then sure, back off a little bit. But you tell that to a racing driver, they'll just look at you and laugh. They're there to push, they're there to race, and this is exactly what we're seeing from these two.
Yep. I mean, the differences are, as we've said many times before, just extremely marginal to extremely fierce competitors, and we are certainly lucky to be able to watch them heading around this track. It seemed earlier in the race I was seeing the sun peeking out a little bit there, Chris, but it does seem to have gotten foggy once again, as I thought maybe that would start to dissipate off with the sun, but no, it is still pretty foggy here at Brands Hatch. And we're now 19 laps into the race. And again, if you want to take part in the Driver of the Day and also the prediction game competition, make sure you guys check out the website where you can do both of those things. And I'm not sure, I think Driver of the Day is eventually going to go down right to the end of this race, so I'm not going to try and make any predictions just yet, because I have a feeling it may come down, we might be deciding our Driver of the Day in, about 14 minutes, I would say.
Yeah, I think that one is good. Sometimes drivers just absolutely blow the field away, and they make that vote right at the beginning. We are certainly not going to have that luxury here, as we are looking once again at Jaroslav Hanzik trying to do what he can against that very green Mercedes of Andrei Slebek as they now come through Druids once again, and Blazek has not been able to break free too far, and Jan Secret...
He really hasn't.
No, he hasn't at all, and Jan Secret is still there, but again, he's not been able to close in on that battle as well. So that's a little bit surprising. I mean, you would expect drivers that are just constantly, attack, defense, they're going to be slowing each other down, but, Jan Secret, as good as he is, just cannot close in on this particular battle unless he is, of course, pacing himself. It would be very easy to get caught up in a battle. He may well be hoping that they collide and fly off into the dust, but equally you would imagine Michael Blazek, as good as he is in that Legion car, I would have expected him to really push to get away from them, and it just hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah, Blazek seems to be... I mean, again, he seemed like the faster car when he was stuck behind Hlebets, didn't he? But once he actually cleared the Elza Gaming car, not a massive amount of difference. The gap has stabilized. He did pull out a gap, but yeah, it really has not changed. And as you said with Sikora as well, really similar gap, about just a couple of seconds between himself and that battle for 5th position. So it seems 4th down to 7th has reached a bit of a stalemate, but this is Virtual GP, so that could change in the blink of an eye, and I'm sure we will switch back over to that pack once they start battling a little bit more. But we focus now on the battle for the lead of this 4th round of the 2018 Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP season, and again, it is Schmidl who has been leading from pole position. Stefanko really wasn't able to make anything happen on the opening lap and has been following the championship leader ever since that opening lap. And with just under 12 minutes remaining, it's looking like it's another one of those situations where Stefanko is just going to have to hope for a mistake. I mean, we've been in this situation so many times with one of these drivers just directly behind the other one and just doing the best that they can, but the other driver is doing the best that they can, and that's part of racing. Is, these guys are in very similar cars and with very similar talent levels. So Jan Frabisch, again, though, currently running in 8th position. We rejoined the Seiko Plus driver. Looks like a bit of a quiet day for him. But again, he just kind of jumped in for this final GT3 race, filling in for Peter Dolezal, who unfortunately couldn't make it. 3rd in the standings behind Blazek, only 4 points between the two of them, so that gap is going to extend as it stands right now with Blazek running in 4th. He's definitely going to pull out a bit of a gap on the Seiko Plus driver, but Frabisch, you have to say, doing a fantastic job. He qualified in 11th position, currently up in 8th. Sikora as well up positions. He started in 8th, up to 7th. Really, the guy you got to feel for the most here is Kostulik, who again was a backmarker last season, if we're honest. That's just brutal honesty there. He was not up to speed. He came in partway through the season, so I don't fault him for it one bit. But Kostulik has been having an incredible 2018 season, 9th in the standings after the first 3 races. Qualified for this race in 7th position, and just because of that one incident on the opening lap, he's well outside of the points. He's not going to be bringing home any points, and I do worry for Kostulik that maybe this was his best car of the season. Maybe this was his best opportunity. But again, I don't think we saw the full potential of Kostulik last season. So turning back now, though, towards this battle for 4th place position, and unless my eyes deceive me, Hlebets has pulled away from Hanzik and actually closed in on Blazek.
He certainly has indeed, so it would seem that either Slebek's just turned up the dial to 11 a little bit, or somewhere along the line Blazek's made a mistake, but if he has, so's Hanzik. So I would imagine that Slebek has really decided to get on with it and start to press on to try and get back in that 4th position. Another driver that I want to just mention who's having a better race than we've seen so far is actually Robin Lucas. He is in 10th. He did manage to get past Prohaska. We saw them battling earlier on. He's actually gotten past him by nearly 10 seconds. So Robin Lucas does seem to be at one more with the car here at Brands Hatch, so he'll be able to open up the point scoring for himself, unless of course he falls foul of this very tricky circuit with the remaining laps. It's always possible, of course, but he's having a pretty good run compared to where he's been so far this season. Still up to Stefanko, though, to pressure Schmidl into a mistake, and it does just look like there's nothing he can do. Although it looked like he had a pretty good run on the exit of Sterling. Is he now going to have a look on the inside of Clark? And again, you saw the nose just dived as he hit the bump at the same time he hit the brakes, which, well, you always try and brake in exactly the same spot, lap on lap on lap. But all it takes is, you know, half a meter difference, and you catch a bump in a very different way, and the car just behaves differently. And you've got to react instantly, and that would be all that kind of held Stefanko off. He could have tried to throw it on the inside of... Oh! Speaking of someone that's... Slebek! Oh, my goodness me! You saw all that progress he's made. He's just all gone in a heartbeat. Can he keep the links car behind? There's going to be an outside move! Oh, well held there by Jan Sikora. Oh, a bit of door banging there. That's my position. I want it back. Andre Slebek is probably quite frustrated with himself with that. I bet you exactly as we were saying before, he'd realised that there's less than 10 minutes to go. He really needs to press on. He'd started to hone in on the Legion car, Michael Blachek, but he's pushed it too hard into that first turn, the Paddock Hill bend, and that's sent him off into the dust. He's just about successfully defended against Jan Sikora, but that's now down to 6th position.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate for him, but great news for Jaroslav Hanzik now, actually, because he could find himself picking up a couple extra championship points. Well, he's already picked up a couple extra ones, thanks to Lebitz going off, but he could pick up a couple more because there is now nothing between himself and the Legion car of Michael Blachek. So Jaroslav Hanzik on the attack now, up into the top 5 of this Brands Hatch race. Again, the final race using these AMG GT3 cars with their lovely sounding V8s just spitting fire out the side pipes as well too. Really gonna miss this car with all of its advanced technologies and everything. It's gonna be a bit of a return to the past with the prototypes, a bit more horsepower, a bit less control, you know, all of those sorts of things. So it's going to be a very different sort of beast. Of course, rear-wheel drive Mercedes, so it does share some similarities, but again, decades apart as far as development is concerned, and none of the benefits that you get from this AMG GT3 car, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it shakes up the field. Hanzik, though, onto the back of the Legion car with just over 6 minutes and a lap still remaining here at Brands Hatch for what is, again, the final race with these GT3 cars. We rejoin the leaders, the battle for the lead here. Michael Schmidl still holding on to it, but only by the narrowest of margins. It's, again, less than a car length, maybe just 1 car length between these two guys into the braking zone. It gets even closer. Stefanko really seems mighty through that high-speed cambered left-hander there, and he's not able to get close enough again, but there's that bump and onto the brakes, and it looks like it's going to be nice and smooth for Schmidl and Stefanko through the final corner. No drama for them like we saw from Lebitz earlier.
No, indeed. You raise an interesting point about the technology that goes into these GT3 cars that just will not be there for the prototypes. And this, again, will come back to how well the drivers can adapt their style to the different type of car. The actual physicality, of course, is different dimensions, different engine, and you think these things roar well, and they do. The prototypes have a very, very amazing roar to them as well. But because the actual technology is completely different, some drivers rely more on the electronic aid that is available to these cars, or indeed to any car that's available to them. So when you put them in a car that doesn't have traction control, that doesn't have ABS, that doesn't have, that relies far more on just raw driver ability than how well you can manipulate the technology, that's when you can really see a very, very different driving style come to the forefront. So for all we know, for instance, like Prohaska and Lucas, who have struggled a bit more in these GT3s, they could be gods in the prototype cars. So that I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, and I would expect maybe a bit more of a scream. You know, these AMG GT3 V8s, they're a bit of a rumble. They sound like if James Earl Jones stepped on a Lego or something like that. You know, it's that kind of rumble, that really kind of torquey. Really, I love the sound of it. But yeah, maybe a bit more of a scream from those prototypes from the late '80s, early '90s. But it is on to down towards Druids once again with less than 4 minutes plus 1 more lap still remaining in this race. It looks like Martin Kostulik into the pits. He's going to try for fastest lap, it looks like, which makes sense, obviously, with him being a lap down. There's no chance of him picking up points in any other way. You can see him just coming out of the pits there, just behind Hanzik, and he isn't going to wait at the pit exit. Yeah, he wants clear air for that final attempt for that fastest lap. And speaking of final attempts, Stefanko is really running out of time here. Chris, he needs to make something happen.
There's only about 5 laps at best to go. That's including the +1. And look how much that Smiddle's having to defend. He didn't get a good run through that turn 4 through Surtees. He had to defend, and he's not had a good run through Hawthorns either, but there's nowhere really to use the extra momentum that Stefanko had into Westfield. So now, once again, Smiddle just got to play the defensive game. It does look like Stefanko's really got the pace on that lead car at the moment, but Smiddle is just defending as much as he has to. He doesn't have to do anything silly. He doesn't have to throw the car around. He just has to do enough to keep Stefanko behind him. And the Republic of Gamers car knows that.
Oh, yeah.
So he's trying his best to force the issue, trying to best to force the mistake, but he can't rely on time anymore. We're now in that phase. Well, we got to that phase a little while ago, but these two have been locked in battle so long, it's easy to forget that, you know, the time running out element would have dawned on our drivers quite a while ago. And now we're really seeing Stefanko trying to do something about it. So, like I say, I would say there's probably 4 laps to go at best.
Yeah, I believe after this one it's going to be 2 more laps. 2 more laps in this race after this one. So yeah, 3 including this one. And Stefanko has a decent-sized gap behind now. Polesny has really fallen off. As you mentioned earlier, Chris, Polesny in kind of no man's land, but I mean, sometimes that's the kind of race that you want. A quiet podium? Yeah, yes, please, sign me up for that. Stefanko, though, it's not been a quiet podium for him at all. He's been staring at the bright red lights and spitting fire of that AMG GT3 up ahead of him for the entirety of this race here at Brands Hatch. And once again, just a couple of car lengths between those 2 red cars. Oh, and it's looking very close now between Hlebets and Sikora. Again, Hlebets with a mistake earlier in the race. That put the Lynx car of Jan Sikora right up to the back of him. Can he make anything happen into this high-speed right-hander? It doesn't look like he's going to be close enough. Just about a car length between the 2 of them. But again, they'll have 2 more laps after this one in order to, or I should say that Sikora will have 2 laps to make something happen here. Hlebets, I gotta imagine he is kicking himself. What was once a 4th place position became a 5th place position, became a 6th place position, and if he's not careful, it could become a 7th place position here.
Yeah.
And if he makes a really big mistake, then it could go even worse than that. Jan Frabisch, again, the Seiko Plus driver, reserve driver, doing well in 8th position, you have to say, as he just turned up and raced and doing well. But on to what is the penultimate lap, I would assume, for Blazek, Hanzek, Hlebets, Sikora, all of these guys now starting the 29th lap here at Brands Hatch, down the hill for the penultimate time. Oh, and it looks like a bit of side-by-side between Blazek and Hanzek there, coming out of Druids, or heading into Druids. Not so much side-by-side coming out of Druids, but very, very close. And Hanzek is one of those guys that was a bit higher up last year compared to Blazek, but again, Blazek is 2nd in the championship. He just needs that confidence to know that he is faster than Hanzek, at least in this car, at least historically over the course of this season so far. He's been faster. He needs to just keep that positivity, and he has actually pulled out a little bit of a gap there. So it looks like the clock is going to wind down here, Chris, and then it's going to be 1 final lap for Michael Schmidl and Martin Stefanko.
Absolutely, and all race long there has been battles somewhere. We have this best, Schmidl and Stefanko. We have got Blazek and Hanzek, as we've been looking at previously. Sikora and Hlebek, although I think Sikora has just said that has fallen off back a little bit from the Alza Gaming car. But there's been battling from flag to flag, you know, from lights out to checkered flag, and it does look like that these guys are not going to disappoint. Through Druids once again. Still, Stefanko nailed to the back of his middle. Over to the... Oh, and that's Hanzek and Blazek side by side. So there's the second of our pairings that have been scoring off against one another. And you can see Hanzek is desperate to try and do something. And look how early the Legion car went to the defensive, knowing that that's the only real heavy braking zone of the circuit. So that was Hanzek's best opportunity, and well defended by Blazek. He just has to keep it clean, and that 4th place could well be his.
It's so difficult to stick it around the outside of Druids. It's a full 180-degree corner. You're just stuck out there for what feels like forever. it just makes it so difficult unless you have some sort of massive difference in tire life, because really the corner is too slow for aerodynamics to come into any sort of effect. So it's all about the handling and not so much the aerodynamics of the car. But it looks like Michael Schmidl is going to be pushed across the line as Martin Kostulik does pick up that fastest lap. So it will be an extra point for Kostulik, who again started this race from inside the top 10 and then just fell because of that first lap incident. But it is going to be extremely close between Schmidl and Stefanko as they cross the line in first and second position. It's kind of a repeat, and you can see the excitement from Michael Schmidl and even a little bit of a smile from Martin Stefanko. He doesn't want to get too crazy, but a little smile. And as I mentioned before, a quiet podium for Polesny, which is such a rare event in racing to have a quiet podium. So I hope he is relishing it, because yeah, as Michael Schmidl gives him a bit of a congratulations to his fellow podium sharer. Hanzik, though, not able to get past Blazek in the end. Blazek holds on to that very well-deserved fourth place position, and Sikora in the end couldn't get past Hlebets. He'll come home in 7th position. Zubek in 9th position. He'll pick up a couple of points, which isn't so bad considering he only had 3 points heading into this race, so he'll increase his points tally by 66% as a result of his race here today. And I imagine Zubek, one of those guys that's going to be excited to see the GT3 car go. It's just really not gone well for him. He was a podium contender last year in 2017 in the single-seaters, but it's just not worked out for him in 2018 in these GT3 cars. Just 5 points to his name after 4 races, which, again, Zubek is better than that. We know that, he knows that, and he's going to be looking to improve his 2018 season. So, again, though, congrats to Kostulik for picking up that fastest lap. So, in the end there, we actually had 11 out of the 12 drivers scoring points. So, that was a good Brands Hatch race. I really enjoyed that one, Chris.
Wow, that was incredible. And I know you're going to ask, so look at Driver of the Day. It's going to be difficult to judge.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. Stefanko, Schmidl, Polesny, Blazek. I mean, yeah, you could pick almost half of the grid here, but as we said, very close at the front. Just over a quarter of a second between Schmidl and Stefanko. Polesny grabbing that final podium position ahead of Blazek and Hanzik. And that is how it finished here in Brands Hatch. Prohaska, the only driver not to score any points. But Robin Lucas opening up his tally. He finally picks up a point.
So that is how the championship standings now are post-race. Look at that, nearly double Blazek's scores, who now takes 2nd position in the Lenovo Legion car. Michael Schmidl then on 102. Polesny at 55, just 2 points behind Blazek. Stefanko now 4th with 50. Dolajal 45, of course he wasn't with us, but a great effort though by Frabish.
You know, it's a great feeling to win the 4th race in a row, especially this one. It was quite crucial, you know, to stay ahead of Martin. And yeah, it was one of the most toughest races I have ever had. I think as a team we can be quite happy with the results. Obviously, Wojciech wasn't on podium in every race, but at least we won 4 races in a row. So yeah, we will see what happens in the prototypes, and we are really looking forward to it.
Michael just managed to edge me out in qualifying again, which was crucial in the end. I had a good start, finally. It wasn't perfect, but it was good. But we had a small fight with Polesny into turn 1, into turn 2 and turn 3. I'm glad that it was clean, hard but fair, so it was a good battle. And then I was trying to catch Michael. I managed to do that. I believe even though he was trying to go carefully, not make any mistakes, I still think that my pace in the race was just a little bit better, but unfortunately Michael had the track position and didn't make any mistakes, so P2 for me was maximum, and we'll see what happens in the next races. I know I have the pace, and I know I can beat him, so I just need to get the qualifying right, get the lap together, and yeah, manage to win some races and close the gap. But right now, as it is, for me the most important thing is to close the gap to the guys that are from 2nd to 4th in the standings. This time, finally, nobody got ahead of me, but I didn't get pole, so it was 2nd place again. So yeah, mixed emotions, definitely ups and downs throughout the 4 races, but hopefully with the next car it's going to be much better.
I had a good quali pace and was secured P3, and it was probably one of the most easiest race of my life. So I am very satisfied with P3.
And it seems that Polesny did indeed appreciate that quiet podium, and he'll join Martin Stefanko and Michael Schmidl up on that well-deserved 4th podium of this 2018 Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP season. And huge congratulations to all 3 of those guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Of course, next time we will be in the prototypes. For Chris and for myself and for the entire VGP team, thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.